Close your eyes for a moment and imagine it's 1974. A warm breeze drifts through a quiet American suburb, the sun glowing on rows of pastel-colored houses, and somewhere in the distance, you can hear screen doors slamming as kids rush outside. There are no smartphones buzzing, no tablets waiting to distract you, and no digital worlds competing for your attention. Back then, the real world was the adventure. You step out onto the front porch and the air smells like freshly cut grass. On the sidewalk, chalk drawings from yesterday's games are still visible. Hopscotch squares, arrows from treasure hunts, and messy doodles only kids could understand. A group of friends is already gathering at the end of the street. Bikes tossed on the ground, baseball gloves hanging from handlebars, someone waving you over. "Hey, come on!" they shout. And just like that, your whole day has begun. There's something magical about this time. Toys didn't talk, they didn't light up, and they didn't update every year, but somehow they feel more alive than anything today. Hot Wheels tracks stretched across living room. Floors like roller coasters you engineered yourself. Barbie houses made from cardboard and imagination. Viewmasters that opened tiny windows into faraway worlds. G.I. Joe missions planned in backyards, with sticks becoming rifles and bushes turning into jungles. Every toy felt like a ticket to a story only you could create. And when you weren't playing with toys, you were outside inventing entire universes. Flashlight tag after sunset, hide and seek around mailboxes and picket fences, and the neighborhood games where the rules changed every week because the kids who made them kept changing them. There was no such thing as being bored. If anything, boredom was the spark. It pushed you to draw, to build, to run, to imagine. Kids didn't wait for entertainment. They created it. Today we're rewinding to that unforgettable era, to the 1970s, a decade filled with creativity, color, and the kind of childhood freedom that's almost impossible to explain to anyone who didn't live it. Whether you grew up racing down cul-de-sacs on a banana seat biker, circling toys in the Sears catalog before Christmas, or spending entire afternoons building forts you swore were absolutely real, there's a memory here waiting to find you again. So take a deep breath. Let that warm, golden nostalgia wash over you and settle in, because we're about to revisit the games we played, the toys we cherished, and the simple moments we didn't realize would stay with us for the rest of our lives. If you already feel that familiar tug in your chest, that little spark of childhood, go ahead and hit like. Now let's dive into how kids in the 70s turned ordinary days into some of the greatest adventures ever. And if you really want to understand a 1970s childhood, you have to step into the rhythm of those long, unstructured days outside. Days that felt like they stretched on forever, where every hour brought a new game, a new idea, or a new adventure that didn't exist the day before. Picture this. You're walking down a quiet suburban street. Every house looks like it's out of a postcard. Perfectly trimmed lawns, American flags on porches, wind chimes dancing in the breeze. And yet behind this perfect calm, there's always a wave of energy building. Because every kid knew that once the first bike hit the pavement, once the first voice yelled, "Let's go!" the entire neighborhood would wake up. Some kids walked around carrying jump ropes like they were precious equipment. Others already had dirt on their knees before the day even started. There was always that one kid who brought a pocket full of marbles, ready to challenge anyone. And someone else would show up with a frisbee that was so scratched and beaten, you wondered how it still flew. And yet it did perfectly. The street wasn't just a street. It was where friendships formed, where small arguments erupted and disappeared in 5 minutes, where the world felt safe, simple, and huge at the same time. You'd hear the creak of a garage door opening, and kids would rush over, hoping today was the day someone found an old ball, a forgotten skateboard, or a cardboard box big enough to become a spaceship, a fortress, or a secret club headquarters. And the best part? No 2 days were the same. The games changed with the weather, with the mood, with whatever someone found lying around. On especially hot days, someone always discovered a hose. Suddenly the entire neighborhood became a splash zone. Kids running, screaming, slipping on wet grass, trying to dodge the freezing spray. And somehow the moment those cold drops hit your back, the whole street erupted in laughter like it was the funniest thing in the world. And then there were those moments, the quiet in-between moments, when everyone would take a break, lying on the grass, staring up at the sky, talking about nothing and everything. Someone would point at a cloud shaped like a dinosaur. Someone else would say they heard a rumor that the house on the corner was haunted. There were no phones to check, no videos to watch, no reason to hurry. It was just childhood, happening naturally. As the day went on, the games shifted again. Maybe a group would start playing hide and seek, but 1970s hide and seek was an entirely different beast. Kids didn't just hide behind a tree. They hid in shrubs, behind garages, inside tool sheds, or on top of thick branches that no adult thought a child could reach. And when the seeker called out, "Ready or not, here I come," the whole neighborhood held its breath. And of course, every street had a dangerous hill. Not really dangerous, but to kids it might as well have been Mount Everest. Riding bikes down, it felt like flying. Your heart would race, your hair blowing back, your pedals spinning faster than your feet could keep up. And at the bottom, the riders always skidded to a stop, leaving marks on the pavement and shouting, "Did you see that?" As the afternoon faded into golden hour, everything softened. Sunlight turned the trees orange. Long shadows stretched across lawns, and the street got quieter. But everyone knew one thing. The best part of the day was still coming. Streetlights flickered on. That soft, buzzing neon glow. That meant it was officially time for evening games. This was when the world felt mysterious, exciting, alive. Flashlight beams cut through the dark like searchlights. Kids crouched behind parked cars, hiding under porch steps, trying not to laugh. Every house's yard felt like a maze. Every shadow felt like a hiding place. And every time the beam caught someone's shoe or shirt, you'd hear a scream, a burst of laughter, and the chase would start all over again. There was something special about these nights. You could feel the temperature drop. You could smell barbecues cooling down. You could hear cicadas humming like background music. And you could see fireflies drifting in slow motion, glowing like tiny floating lanterns. All of it, the games, the freedom, the unpredictability, the friendships, blended together into something that didn't feel big at the time, but became huge in memory. Because the truth is, kids in the 1970s didn't just play outside. They lived outside. They grew up outside. And the street wasn't just where games happened. It's where childhood happened. In the 1970s, stepping outside wasn't just something you did. It was practically a daily ritual. You didn't ask, "What are we going to do today?" The outdoors answered that question for you. It invited you, challenged you, and shaped entire summers that felt endless and wide open. The backyard was only the beginning. From there, the world stretched out like a giant frontier. The alley behind your house, the empty lot 2 streets over, the creek that you probably weren't supposed to go near. These places weren't off limits. They were magnets pulling you into adventure. There was something special about that first step onto warm pavement. A worn-down sneaker hitting the ground, the smell of freshly cut grass drifting in the air. It was the smell of freedom, the kind of freedom today's kids don't quite understand. Not because they don't want it, but because the world has changed. And the materials you played with? Pure improvisation. A stack of old newspapers became sleds racing down dusty hills. Fallen branches formed little bridges over puddles. A broken bicycle wheel rolling down a sidewalk became a competition. Whose wheel would go the farthest without tipping over? Everything had potential. Everything had a purpose. And that neighborhood gang of kids, your crew, your tribe, didn't need group chats or text messages. If you heard voices outside, you just ran out and joined in. No planning, no scheduling. It just happened. Kids flowed in and out of each other's yards like water. Someone always had a new idea, a new rule, a new challenge. Sometimes you'd spend hours building a fort, only for it to collapse 5 minutes later. But you didn't care. You rebuilt it, stronger, higher, more ridiculous, and every time you stepped back to admire your work, you felt like an engineer, an architect, a dreamer. Chasing fireflies as the sun dipped below the rooftops felt like magic. The way their little lights flickered, it was like nature giving you your own personal sparkles. Nobody was glued to a screen. You were glued to the moment. You were present. You were alive. When the summer heat got overwhelming, you'd run through sprinklers, letting cool arcs of water slap against your legs, or you'd find the nearest patch of shade, lie down, and stare at the clouds. You didn't rush, you didn't worry, you just existed. And that ice cream truck, the real soundtrack of those summers, was enough to freeze the world in place. The moment you heard that jingle, kids scattered in every direction, sprinting inside for coins, quarters, nickels, dimes, whatever you could scrape together. And even if you came up short, there was always that one kid who had a few extra cents and was willing to share. As evening settled in, the whole neighborhood changed color. Warm orange skies, long shadows stretching across the street, the subtle glow of streetlights slowly flickering on one by one. That glow meant the adventure was winding down, but your spirit was still racing. Be home when the streetlights come on. It wasn't a warning, it was a rhythm, a tradition, a childhood clock that didn't need numbers. If you lived through the 70s, you didn't just play outside, you grew up outside. You learned bravery, creativity, friendship, resilience, all from a world that didn't need electricity to entertain you. And that world, the one made of scraped knees, muddy shoes, sweaty shirts, and sunburnt shoulders, is a world many would give anything to revisit. Just one more time, in the 1970s, toys weren't just objects, they were keys to entire worlds. The moment a child opened a box, the mundane transformed into magic. A simple action figure could become the hero of a sprawling epic. A set of blocks wasn't just building, it was creating cities, castles, and even entire civilizations with roads, bridges, and secret passages only the imagination could understand. And the toy shelves! Oh, the shelves seemed to stretch endlessly, stacked with bright plastic wonders, board games, puzzles, model kits, and the ultimate favorites, dolls with wardrobes, cars with shiny chrome, and figurines that demanded new adventures every day. Every toy had a story, and every story had a beginning, middle, and climax that only the child could write. But toys weren't just about sitting still. They demanded movement, creativity, interaction. You didn't just hold a toy, you played with it, fought with it, raced it, or even argued over it. A toy car could spark neighborhood competitions, where kids lined up to see whose Hot Wheels or their homemade cars could zoom the fastest down the driveway. Sometimes a cardboard ramp was all you needed to turn your living room into an entire Grand Prix truck. And let's not forget arts and crafts. Paint, glue, colored paper, markers, even bits of string or tin foil, everything became part of your imaginary world. A macaroni necklace wasn't just a necklace. It was royal jewelry for a queen, a magic talisman, or a prize for completing a daring mission. Even indoor games had rules that were flexible, mutable, and open-ended. Kids invented entire universes in their basements, bedrooms, or living rooms. Pillows became fort walls, blankets became invisible shields, chairs turned into pirate ships. Parents might have seen chaos, but kids saw epic battles, secret hideouts, and kingdoms under siege. And the sounds of toys in motion, the clatter of building blocks, the whirring of model cars, the squeaks of dolls being dragged across the floor, filled houses with energy, laughter, and sometimes a little competitive yelling. Every squeak, clink, and thud was part of the soundtrack of a childhood that existed entirely in that moment. Toys weren't passive. They were active participants. They made kids think, plan, imagine, and create. They taught patience, problem-solving, teamwork, and storytelling long before the school day began. And the best part? You didn't need batteries for imagination to work. You just needed curiosity, time, and maybe a sibling or a friend willing to jump in. And in those quiet evenings, when you finally sat down after a full day of outdoor games, forts, bikes, and running around, the toys still pulled you back in. They were companions, playmates, heroes, and sidekicks. They connected the wild freedom of the street to the calm of home. And just like that, every day in the 70s felt like a complete story. From sunrise to sunset, from backyard to living room, from one adventure to the next. Those toys, those hours, those worlds, they weren't just playthings. They were the foundation of imagination, the spark of creativity, and the glue that held childhood memories together. And if you grew up with them, you'll know exactly what it felt like. endless possibilities, laughter around every corner, and a universe waiting to be created right in your own home. In the 1970s, television wasn't just a screen. It was a doorway. Families gathered around wood-paneled boxes with tiny screens and fuzzy pictures, tuning in to shows that would shape the conversations. Jokes and dreams of entire generations. Saturday mornings were sacred. Cartoons ran for hours, filled with color, chaos, and laughter. The heroes were animated. The villains were over the top. And the lessons, whether subtle or obvious, stayed with you long after the credits rolled. And then came the primetime shows. Family sitcoms, variety programs, and iconic dramas that made people laugh, cry and relate. Shows like Happy Days or The Brady Bunch weren't just entertainment, they were cultural touchstones. Everyone knew the characters, the catchphrases, the theme songs. The stories from these shows would slip into playground conversations, family dinners and backyard games. Music, oh the music! The 70s had a soundtrack that seemed endless. Disco beats pulsed through the streets. Rock anthems echoed from car radios. Soul and R&B stirred feelings deeper than words could describe. Kids and teens would dance in their living rooms, spinning to vinyl records, trying to imitate the moves they saw on TV or in the neighborhood talent shows. Music wasn't background noise. It was life, energy, identity. Fashion followed music and culture like a loyal shadow. Bell-bottoms, platform shoes, tie-dye shirts, feathered hair, and wide collars made each kid, teen, and adult a walking statement. Clothing wasn't just clothing, it was rebellion, expression, individuality. You didn't just wear something. You were something when you dressed for the day. Even everyday objects had personality. Lava lamps glowed like liquid fire on end tables. Shag carpets were soft stages for dance battles, and posters of bands and movie stars plastered bedroom walls, transforming the space into a mini-universe. Every room, every corner, every street seemed to hum with creativity, possibility, and cultural flavor. And let's not forget the small moments. Dial-up rotary phones clicked with anticipation. Handwritten letters were treasured, and a trip to the local record store or video rental shop felt like a pilgrimage. Kids, teens, and adults alike were connected by trends, by shared songs, and by the unspoken understanding that this era, messy, vibrant, loud, and colorful, was something special, something to remember. Even when the sun set and the TV went off, the influence lingered. Lines from a favorite show would pop into conversations. A song would replay in your head, and the style, rhythm, and energy of the 70s would continue to shape your identity. Because growing up in that decade wasn't just about playing outside or enjoying toys. It was about feeling alive in a culture that pulsed with music, colors, humor, and humanity. In the end, the 1970s weren't perfect, but they were vibrant, alive, and unforgettable. The combination of television, music, fashion, and everyday creativity created memories that didn't fade with time. And if you experienced it firsthand, you'll know that nostalgia isn't just a feeling, it's a portal back to days where life moved at its own rhythm, where fun was endless, and where imagination ruled everything. Street games, friendship, and adventures of the 70s. The streets of the 1970s weren't just pathways. They were stages, arenas, and endless playgrounds for imagination. Every crack in the sidewalk, every tree at the corner, every mailbox or fire hydrant became a landmark in a world you alone, or with friends, could create. You didn't need smartphones, consoles, or screens. Your mind built entire universes with nothing more than energy, creativity, and a sense of curiosity. Kids ran freely, calling out names to gather friends for impromptu games. Kickball, tag, hide-and-seek, hopscotch, Red Rover, or even games invented in the spur of the moment. Every game evolved with every round, every shout, every argument over rules or who was it. Laughter echoed off houses, cars, and fences, weaving through the neighborhood like a soundtrack to endless summer afternoons. Friendship wasn't measured in likes, followers, or emojis. It was measured in scraped knees, mud-stained shoes, whispered secrets, shared snacks, and loyalty. The kid who brought the ball, the one who remembered everyone's favorite hiding spot. the one who saved a friend at the last second. These were the heroes of your neighborhood. Through games, you learned teamwork, negotiation, and patience. You discovered the joy of compromise, the thrill of victory, and the resilience of bouncing back after defeat. Even rainy days had adventures. Chalk drawings on sidewalks washed away, but imagination replaced them instantly. Puddles became racetracks for paper boats, bathtubs turned into submarines, and living rooms became forts or castles when streets were too slippery. Every limitation sparked creativity. Every obstacle became part of the story, and boredom was never an option. It was the fuel for wild ideas. Quiet moments were just as magical. Sitting on the curb at sunset, watching the sky turn gold and pink, sharing whispered plans with a friend about tomorrow's adventure, or simply laughing until your stomach ached. Small, fleeting moments, yet monumental in shaping who you were. Your understanding of the world and the bonds you formed. Those memories weren't just nostalgic, they were formative, teaching lessons about courage, imagination, and empathy. The neighborhood itself became a universe. Each child was a captain, every alley a river, each fence a castle wall. You climbed trees, built forts, raced bikes down hills, and sometimes fell, only to get up again. Stronger, laughing louder. Every scrape and bruise became a badge of honor, a story to tell later, a mark of adventure. You didn't just play, you lived, explored, and triumphed in ways the modern world rarely allows. Even the quiet walks home were part of the adventure. Conversations about imaginary worlds, secret plans, and daring challenges continued until dinner time, as the glow of streetlights flickered on. Every day had arcs of tension and triumph, beginnings and endings, victories and minor defeats, and every moment was captured, not on a screen but in memory, etched permanently into the story of a childhood lived fully. When the day ended, and parents finally called everyone inside, the excitement didn't fade. Stories were recounted, laughs shared, and plans made for the next day's adventures. The 1970s weren't just about the games themselves. They were about the friendships formed, the worlds imagined, and the creativity sparked by unstructured, boundless play. Because in that decade, friendship wasn't something you typed, it was something you experienced. Adventure wasn't an app, it was the world outside your front door. And every day, every moment, every street, and every tree was a chance to write an epic story, all your own. As the sun sets over the streets, living rooms, and playgrounds of the 1970s, the memories of that decade come alive. We've run through the games, toys, and adventures that shaped childhoods. We've laughed at the shows, danced to the music, and marveled at the fashions that painted an era with bold color and personality. But it wasn't just about objects or trends, it was about feeling, about connection, imagination, and the simple joy of being fully alive in a moment. Those summers, those streets, those evenings in front of the TV, they weren't perfect, but they were vivid. Every scraped knee, every paper boat floated in a puddle, every fort built from blankets and chairs, every late-night conversation about what tomorrow might hold. They stitched together a patchwork of experiences that formed the very essence of a generation. The friends you ran with, the laughter you shared, the competitions that sparked your imagination, they weren't just fleeting moments. They were lessons in teamwork, resilience, creativity, and friendship. They taught you to explore, to dream, and to embrace the unpredictable adventure of childhood. And even now, decades later, recalling those days can make your heart race with nostalgia, your mind light up with vivid images, and your soul hum with memories you thought were long gone. Television, music, toys, games, fashion, they were the instruments of an era. But the real magic came from you, from the kids who dared to dream, to laugh, to run wild through streets, yards and living rooms. Every day was a story, every game a journey, and every friendship a treasure. That was the beauty of the 1970s, a world alive with possibility, waiting to be discovered, played, and remembered. So, as we close this journey, take a moment to remember your own adventures. Recall the toys that sparked your imagination, the songs that made you dance, the shows that made you laugh and cry, the friends who made your heart lighter, and the streets where you discovered your courage. These memories aren't just nostalgia, they are proof that childhood can be magical, vibrant, and endlessly creative. And maybe, just maybe, a little of that magic is still alive today, waiting for you to reach back. Remember and smile, because the 1970s weren't just a decade. They were a feeling, an energy, and a world that lived inside every child who dared to play. So go ahead, laugh, remember, and let the memories of the 70s remind you that life can be playful, adventurous, and full of wonder, no matter the era.